June the 23rd, 2023. Guys, this is Saturday morning. You're looking at some beautiful weather over the southeast. Our storm Arlene has now slowed from 40 miles per hour sustained winds to 35 miles per hour, which puts it back from a tropical storm to a tropical depression. Spaghetti models are still showing it looping down into northern Cuba, which you see it's getting very close to that now, and then headed back up, it looks like through the Keys, according to a Canadian model and the Navy model. Now, one thing I'm seeing that's a little different from a few days ago was, if you remember, the wind shear was moving north and northeast. It was going basically in this direction. That's changed a little bit. You're starting to see less wind shear. Now, I don't know if that will allow this storm to wrap up any moisture or not. It's fairly dry and re-strengthen as it goes up by the Keys. It will be getting into warmer water. Once it bounces off of Cuba, it's going to come across the Florida Straits. That's warm water because that's where the Gulf Stream itself enters and comes back out of the Gulf of Mexico. Let me take this off. Now, notice the clouds are blowing southeast down towards Cuba around the storm. So how will that affect the steering? That's going to be interesting. But it may prevent any storms from building around the center, and that would be key. Guys, I know it's hurricane season, but we don't need any major destruction right now. Things have been rough enough. And it looks like we may have a very active hurricane season. But guys, let me say this while we're here. I know the videos yesterday were somewhat controversial, if not very controversial. And I hesitated for over a year to do that video, or those videos, because I didn't want to ruffle feathers. I didn't want to get a lot of people mad. But times are getting short now, and you're going to have to put your feelings aside. You don't have to do anything. Let me take that back. But it's time for everyone to start coming out with all the information they know, and that's one of the reasons we're going to get into the book of Enoch, because it was written for these end times. But guys, I heard it was 95% approval on the video, and so that's really good to me. Now, the 5%, you guys were pretty upset with me. I understand that. And, it's like pulling someone's safety blanket out from under them in a way, especially if some of the people that got mad, or some of you guys that got mad, if it was because suddenly the rapture doctrine was removed. And it was never there to begin with. It was a lot of mistranslation in 1 Thessalonians, I think it was chapter 4. But again, it's time to take the gloves off. It's time to be grown-ups here. And if you got to shake off some old thoughts or some old beliefs, then so be it. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But as far as me, I'm going to stick with the words of Jesus Christ, not Paul. You know how I feel about him. Don't like him. Never have, never will. I know what he did. Same thing we've seen with some rhino Republicans. Same thing, but on a much larger and more important scale, is what Rome did. And so that's how I feel about it, and nothing's going to change my mind. I've studied it for a long time, like I said, have been wanting to mention that for about a year, and it was kind of, I knew that it was going to create conflict, and a lot of people would unsubscribe from the channel. I knew that was going to happen. But I also wanted to be able to put it together right. And I hope I did that. It was right enough to make a lot of people mad at me. But guys, I can take that. I'm a grown man. I can take it. I've taken a lot worse. Believe me, a lot worse. So you can, like I said, study, get mad, or whatever you got to do. But 95% of you listened and thought about it. And there were some very encouraging words there. People saying they were like me. They weren't really comfortable with the way Paul was changing the doctrine of Christ. And if you're comfortable with that, maybe you should just read Paul from now on. Whatever. But anyway, let's look at spaghetti models. I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, this is put together at Sky Tower down in Florida, the Fox Weather Channel there. But most of the models are pretty close now. You're seeing that dive into Cuba. The two that I always watch, and you guys have watched it for years now, are the Canadian model and the Navy model. And they just happen to cross, the light green one and the purple one right there, guys, just south of Miami. Check that out. So it looks like that we're going to get some trouble in the Keys. I don't know how much. It could be just this tropical depression. But again, be very careful of rip currents, pop-up storms. As you get closer to land, you can have tornadoes, even with a tropical depression. So this was at 7:30 a.m. this morning, about 4 hours ago. And it will change throughout the day, but we're starting to narrow it down. And I've always said when the Navy model and the Canadian model start crossing, which they do here twice, the Canadian model pretty much clips the northern section of the Florida Keys, and the Navy model goes just south of that. But either way, the storm is, if it tracks either one of those models, then you're going to have some rain along the south. We don't know if it's going to strengthen. We have no idea yet. They're predicting it to become just a low pressure area. We'll see. We're getting into that time of the year, and the water is very warm. Now notice they have not changed this model yet. This was at 5 a.m. this morning. You're still at 40-mile-an-hour winds, and you still had the tropical storm symbol there. But again, it's down to 35 miles per hour tropical depression. What they're showing here is a miss as far as the center. This is National Hurricane Center, and anywhere inside this cone. But if it stays to the center, and then it will not interact with the land, it will still keep some of its strength. How that will play out through the warmer waters again of the Florida Strait, we don't know yet. We're just going to have to watch it. But tonight after midnight, Sunday 2 a.m., it's supposed to be right here, very close to Havana, I guess you would say, 30-mile-per-hour sustained wind. So your gusts are going to be higher. Your wind's going to be coming across the beach from the west or to the left of this image. Your rip currents are going to be a problem because of that, passing across there. But guys, this is what we have now. Doesn't look like a major storm will develop, and that is a very good thing. Like I said, we've got enough problems on our hands right now without getting a city devastated, losing lives and electricity and power. It's getting tough just to make it on normal days, isn't it, guys? So we don't need that. But I suspect, and I hope I'm wrong, that we will have a few strong storms. I think they're talking about maybe 6 hurricanes, 3 or 4 of them very powerful. That's how the National Hurricane, they look at everything and kind of see what they've got. But it never plays out exactly the way that the models show. That's why we keep such a close eye on it. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up, guys. Be safe.